which structure in terms of strategy and raising money is appropriate depending on the goal?
Sure. Again, I think it comes back to your business plan. You can raise money through an LLC, you can raise money through a corporation. But if your plan is to use options as a currency to pay your employees and pay less cash, then you end up with a corporation over an LLC. In my mind, or in my experience with clients, raising money through a corporate vehicle is easier. It's easier to describe to investors the rights they will have, because you would you're able to describe them, because it's the same for all entities. With an LLC, you never have two LLCs look the same. So you would always have to refer them to that 60-page document and ask them to read it to understand. And in the best case, they do read it and they do understand what they're investing in. In the worst case, they don't, and then you have confusion coming back to haunt you maybe later. In terms of international, I do a lot of joint ventures cross-border, and often these joint ventures, they can be set up as LLCs or corporations. But if you're the U.S. party, often it has, again, a little bit more of a cachet to have a corporate entity rather than an LLCs. Overseas, they sometimes associate LLCs with more family-run businesses. For some reason, I heard it the other day, European-based business, they wanted to set up a corp instead of an LLC, because they wanted to flag that they were not a family-run business. So, yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking also, most entrepreneurs they're confronted with raising capital, whether they're starting out and they're seeking a bridge loan. They may look at loans with the traditional banks, or they may look at private investors. One of the things that are confronting entrepreneurs is now they're no longer behind the corporate veil, and they're having to do a lot of guaranteeing of loans, guaranteeing of debt. What are some of your thoughts of how an entrepreneur can actually mitigate some of that risk of putting their own personal assets? Because if I'm entering into a corporation with the thought that I'm protected behind the corporate veil, and that's my goal, I went along the lines of a corporation because I can take on investors, my personal assets are protected, my personal assets are not at risk, the corporation's a separate entity. But yet, if I'm raising capital, I'm still confronted with, because I'm starting out, I may not have an idea like Hezekiah said where money's not an issue. The idea is so great, money's not an issue. In most cases, entrepreneurs have to raise money, and in typical fashion, they start out with a bridge loan or some type of debt instrument. What are some of your all's thoughts, Jocelyn, about how to mitigate that risk of putting yourself out there and become a guarantor in your business and putting your personal assets at risk?
Sure. Well, as far as obtaining the benefits of having an entity, a corporation, or a limited liability entity, it's always important to adequately capitalize the company so that your personal assets aren't potentially vulnerable. And of course, things Lars could speak more about, setting up a bank account for the company and making sure everything is clear on that front and no gray area as far as whose assets they are. Lars, did you have other things on that issue?
Sure. So there are a couple of things. One is to make sure your entity is set up in the correct sort of way. In terms of the bank guarantees, and I've seen this many times come back to haunt founders. So in my experience, I see new clients every week, and there's a team coming in. Sometimes it's only one person, sometimes it's 3 or 4. And in most cases, I would say probably closer to 80% of the cases, that founder's team will not be around, or they will not be working together within 2-3 years. If you do a Series A financing, by the time you complete your Series B round, the founder is likely not to be the CEO. So you will end up finding a new team and a new CEO. If you sign the guarantees in the very beginning, you don't want to be on the hook if you're no longer part of the team But the banks are very unlikely to let you go, let you off the hook. And we dealt with a client I worked with for 12 years, 4 different ventures, and I don't remember now which bank is sponsoring this event, so I'm not going to mention the bank. But they pursued him for $65,000. He had left the business 6-7 years ago, but he had early on guaranteed his credit card. So I think the way you protect yourself is to the extent you can, and not to sign personal guarantees. Try to look for other ways of financing your business. If you have to sign a personal guarantee, try to revisit the banking relationship every year, every 2 years, and as soon as you have revenue, maybe get a different type of credit facility and get out of that, because that's not a place where you want to be long term.
So one way to avoid that is to really leverage personal credit as much as possible, credit cards, other ways of bootstrapping to avoid the personal guarantor situation. Okay, thank you.